Favorite adventure? Oh God, I have to think about that. So many wonderful things that have happened. Scale is, it's a major collection. There's no collection that really focuses on what I'm focusing on. Succulents. They're all, succulents are also flowering plants, but it's a different world. The succulent is the important thing, not the flowering plant. All of these have flowers, but succulents have a special connotation. They're very difficult to kill. And they seal themselves off. I can pull that out or cut that down. And you see those plants over there? In the wall? No, this plants here.
Okay.
These plants have been here for about 7 months. I haven't found a place to put them yet. But these are all plants that you can't kill because they're sealed off here. And let me see, let me show you something. No, this hasn't developed any roots yet, but I can break this off, I can cut this off, this, and this, let them dry and plant them, and they'll become huge plants sooner or later. Look at this. These are succulents that grow on trees. Look at that, this is the seed pod here. And here's the first plant that I planted in this greenhouse. The first plant I planted was this big, and every time it sent out a little baby, I took it out and planted them here. Look what's happening. This is 3 years since I planted this is the original one. This came out of here. I planted that, and that's growing. And these are all little babies, and I've given away a dozen babies as well. This started out as a plant about this big. And this sends out wonderful flowers around here. Isn't that gorgeous? This was, my wife said, I'd love to have this bed for my plants. And so she planted plants that we got in various trips in here, but she didn't realize what she was planting. And these are all the results of this planting. So after a while she gave up and said, I can't take care of these monsters. I thought I was planting little babies. Anyway, so there's a story behind everything, you realize that.
Okay.
What's the most difficult or disappointing part of collecting plants? Well, there are really no disappointing things. The only problem I've ever had collecting plants was early on when I come back from a trip around wherever I was in the world, and at customs they would say to me, do you have any plants that you bring into the country? And so the first time I said yes, that was in New York, and they said, well, we'll have to, and I had a lot of plants with me. I'd come back from Europe. And they said, well, we'll have to look at this. And so I was stuck in New York for 2 days. And at the end of 2 days, they said, well, you can take these, but we had to confiscate some plants because you couldn't take them into the United States. So the second time it happened the same way. It happened the third time. I was coming back from Mexico, and I thought, my God, is this going to happen to me again? So it was really a fascinating thing. So I said, I knew the same thing would happen, and at the guard customs said, I'm going to have to take this look at these plants and so on. You'll have to come back, and I didn't have too many plants at that time. I have to come back later tomorrow at about noon, because he was on the American side. And so I decided I had to get out of there as soon as possible, and I wanted to see what he was doing with these plants and where he was looking at them and so on. And so I got there about 9 o'clock in the morning, and it happened that he had a greenhouse right there, and it was full of plants. None of them were labeled. He didn't know what they were, but all of the guards around the country were collecting plants. Now, they all have my books. Not all, I have no idea how many of them have it, but they have names on them, and they're doing the same thing, I'm sure, except that people are a little more sophisticated now. Isn't that ridiculous? Look, history is a fantastic thing. So this is probably my favorite adventure. There are lots of favorite adventures in Africa, Madagascar, all over the place, but this was, well, this wasn't wild collecting, but this is one of the episodes related to my plans. The most rewarding aspect about collecting plants, people get hooked very easily, and they love to get plants that they can't kill. And I've had thousands of people here, and I've tried to eliminate some of the, I give away plants to everyone who comes here, but it's a fantastic world, and you can't kill them, and I show them how to, particularly children, I show them how to put them in the ground and nurture them, and you don't have to worry about watering them after they root properly and so on. And if you water them, they go crazy. Like these things were planted only about 8 months ago, and they were half the size, and look what's happening there. Okay, do you talk or play music to your plants? No. I listen to them, but I listen to them. The most rewarding aspect about collecting plants? There are two things. The rewards are in two ways. One, I'm imbued with the idea of having as many new plants as possible. What was I saying? Most rewarding thing about collecting plants. Well, there are two things. One, collecting as many different plants as possible, because every time you look at the plants that you collect, you're going down memory lane, and it's a multiple effect. You're not only collecting the plants, but you're also revisiting the scene of collecting. And at the same time, since I did a lot of this with friends of mine, I got a call from one of them in I got a call from one friend of mine who traveled with me to Madagascar on one of the trips. He's aging dramatically, and he can barely talk, but he called me yesterday. And it's a complicated world, as you'll find out. How old are you?
17.
17. Anyway, so the most rewarding aspect is that multiple. One, it's a feeling of accomplishment. And secondly, it reminds you of where you collected these plants and the people you collected with, and an innocent world.